sort of give you a speed talking, I think, overview of current issues between the two of us. And we will have to speed talk because we kind of want to cover kind of as much as we can. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about, in addition to the ones we've already talked about, some of the popular social media apps that are out there. As you've heard from Katie, the only ones that matter are Snapchat and Instagram and After School. Although she didn't talk about House Party, which is kind of an interesting one, but we can get to that in a minute. And then we'll talk about the dangers. Two different kinds of dangers. Dangers from your friends, probably dangers from yourself and your friends, and then dangers from the criminals that we see from a law enforcement standpoint. And then you as parents, you as educators, what do you do about it? So that's sort of where we're going. So lots and lots and lots of different types of social media apps. And I think depending on who you're talking to, public school kids, private school kids, Catholic school kids, what jurisdiction you're in, whether you're here in a large urban area, whether you're in a smaller area, you're going to see different kids using different apps depending on what their friends are using and what happens to be popular. But I think from what we see, don't you agree, Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter, especially with high school kids, tend to be, and they all connect. So, that ends up being, and I heard, we both heard Katie say multiple times the geotags and all the geotagging features, which of course sends a chill up our spine and probably yours too, so we'll talk about that in a minute. And so I think I froze my little thing here. I might have to do this manually as far as, okay, good. I love when technology lets us down. Talk amongst yourselves. Let's go to the next one. So the interesting thing about this slide, as we'll ad-lib this here, is it kind of goes back to also what Katie was saying, is communication, and we'll say this at the end, communication, whether it's with your students, your kids, or both, becomes really, really important. And Katie was talking about the great relationship she has with her parents. There's that trust there, but they're still kids. We're still talking about kids, and we're still talking about adults. So the thing about this is, if you were to take a look at your child's phone, or take a look at your student's phone if you're in a school setting, and just look at what's on there. There are lots of apps, icons for apps on there that probably look fairly familiar to you guys. Facebook probably looks pretty familiar to most people in this room. Pinterest probably looks familiar. It will never be on a child's phone. That I can almost guarantee. Twitter's up there, Google Plus, Skype, those kinds of things. Things look familiar. But what if you look at their phone, say it would look like this phone, and there was something that didn't look familiar? There's that teachable moment. There's that point where you can have that communication with your child or your student. Hey, what's that little happy face icon? What does that mean? Explain that to me. Because remember, kids are so proud of how smart they are as it relates to technology, how much smarter they are than all of you when it comes to technology. Ask them about it. And hopefully they'll be real braggy. They'll be like, oh, you don't know what that is? I do. And then they'll explain it. And so it's an opportunity to open those lines of communication and talk to your kids. So just look at the phone and see what happens. So here are a couple of just little icons. So what Katie was talking about, Kik, pretty much not used so widely, although there are some areas. I know there's some areas out in San Fernando Valley, some areas up in Northern California that are still using it. The thing that's exciting for kids about Kik is that a lot of parents, very well-meaning parents, will block access to the internet. Block access to these chat apps in order to control their kids and control the message. The thing about Kik is it's got an embedded web browser. And so say you block them from Safari, or you block them from Google, or you block them from whatever internet feature, if they've got Kik, you don't know what it is, they can go in there, use the embedded web browser, and go wherever they want. So that's kind of the appeal of something like Kik. Vine, I'm pretty sure, is gone. Tinder, we see a lot of cyberbullying in Tinder. Because Tinder is obviously a dating app, young adult dating app. You go on there, you put in your profile, and you swipe left, swipe right. There you go. Swipe left, swipe right, whether you want to date somebody or whatever you want to call it. Date someone. But what we're seeing kids do is opening up a Tinder account, opening it up, say, in the name of somebody that they're interested in bullying, and then having their friends go on there, swipe left, swipe right, for the purpose of bullying. So it's sort of taking what you might think is a conventional app for young adults or for adults and using it for the purpose of bullying. So again, communication becomes really, really important. There's Snapchat. And so, you know with Snapchat, it doesn't really disappear. You've got stories, you've got all sorts of features, you've got swipe left, you've got swipe right, you've got all sorts of stuff. Now we have snap porn. And we probably don't need to spend a whole lot of time on that, but you can imagine what snap porn is. And there are also now these apps, like this one's SnapHack, and I think the next one is Snapbox something, Snapbox. These auto-save your Snapchats, which kind of defeats the purpose of Snapchat that it disappears. Auto-saves, and I don't think there's the message that gets sent when you screenshot a Snapchat, but not necessarily when it's being auto-saved by one of these other apps. So something else to be careful of. And then this one, what we're seeing more and more, unfortunately, with human trafficking that we won't have time to get into today, is that human traffickers are using Snapchat for the purposes of sending their human trafficking victims to the location they want them to go to. So you'll see a Snapchat like this of a map, 123 Main Street, and then they'll write, meet Mr. Smith at 10 o'clock. And then it disappears. The message has been sent. Snapchat was now used for a rather nefarious purpose. So there's that dark side, in addition to the fun side that Tracy did. Everybody's named Tracy that Katie showed you. So one of the things, as I said, that really came up a lot with Katie is this whole idea of geotagging. And those of you who've heard us speak before know that geotagging has been around for a long time. But all of these apps, with very few exceptions, have this geotagging feature, which is pretty cool if you want to say, hey, meet me at the Santa Monica Pier, we're going to hang out, and that's kind of what the kids do. But the other side is this experiment that some of you may have seen that I did a couple years ago. For those who don't know what geotagging is, just for your own purposes, it's the idea that there is metadata, information attached to every photo we post online. And that metadata, if you will, gives us a lot of information about that photo. Some interesting information, some not. And so if we were to access that, wow, that's really funky, isn't it? If we were to access that metadata just to see sort of what it looks like, really wonky here today, you might access a screen that looks something like this, depending on what device you're looking at. So that tells you the metadata. It's too small for you guys to see. But it's got pixel size, and it's got focal length, and it's got all the stuff that photographers like to know. It also has down here, and it has it in Snapchat too. You didn't have to hit that button for me. The latitude and longitude. So we're talking about geotags. We're talking about latitude, and longitude. That's why Tracy's here. Of where that picture was taken. Now there you go. There you get the chill up your spine. Latitude and longitude. So when we think about that, we think about back to grammar school. Remember, we learned about maps and coordinates, and if you were in the middle of the ocean, you could find out where you are based on the latitude and longitude coordinates. Well, the problem with that is then we know where people are. That could be good or not so good, right? So I did this experiment. Some of you may have seen this. I was on vacation. I was on vacation up in Big Sur, and I had a BlackBerry at the time. Kudos to BlackBerry, wave it around so you can see what it looks like. I think I even have a picture of it in here. So I took this picture of the Pacific Ocean from a restaurant where I was having lunch in Big Sur. And so I took the picture, and then you're one step ahead. And then, so I took the picture and I sent it down here to one of the detectives from the LAPD ICAC task force that I was working with. And I sent him the picture and I said, guess where I am? I know, kind of mean, but I did it anyway. So I said, guess where I am? And then I went back to eating lunch. And so a minute or two goes by and he sends me that next slide. He sends me a text message with this. So you got the picture back here and there's the metadata of that picture. So creepy, right? So then another minute or two goes by and he sends me this. So there, up there, latitude and longitude of the restaurant where I'm having lunch. So now I lose my appetite, right? And as you can see, Pacific Ocean, Highway 1, there you go. And then another couple minutes goes by and he sends me this. So there's your Google Maps. Copy and paste the latitude and longitude of Google Maps, and what do you get but the address of the restaurant where I'm having lunch. Super creepy, right? And the interesting thing about the next thing he sent me was, if you can see this little green arrow right there that the big arrow is about to point to, that green arrow, if you show the next slide, is the chair I was sitting in at the restaurant. So when we start talking about the coolness of geotags, really cool if you want somebody to meet you here for lunch, because it's a really cool restaurant. But the dark side, the flip side, is what prosecutors end up seeing when people get abducted. We see it in domestic violence cases, in restraining order cases, in kidnapping cases, because it's so easy for people when they post pictures online out there in cyberspace to find out where people are, where they hang out, where they have lunch, where they're posting pictures. And think about it. How many of us have never, ever, ever taken a picture in our house and posted it online? Most people do it all the time. So now you've got a picture online of where you live and where you think, obviously, you're the safest. So the takeaway, turn your location services off. Make sure your kids have the location services off on their phones, and that gets rid of those geotags. And I don't know if, and I'm gonna wake Katie up here, is there a way to block the geotags on Snapchat now?
Yeah, you turn your locations off through the settings.
On your actual phone. So if your phone settings are off, like this, then same thing, it'll turn the settings off in that Snapchat app. So there you have the chill up your spine when we keep hearing about the fun side of geotags. You want to chime in?
No, I think we just have this slide to remind people that all kinds of apps have this. It's not just Snapchat, but also Pokemon Go, a lot of the other ones that keep track of your location. If your phone is keeping track of your location, other people can find you as well.
Which is a scary thought. And then you see also Pokemon Go, and I know it's really popular, and lots of people are playing it, lots of little kids. Tony, I'll get to you in 1 second. But the thing about this is what we're seeing is predators know about Pokemon Go too, right? So predators will go in there and allegedly, or try to, or somehow put the location into Pokemon to get the kids to go there. And so if you imagine a predator luring a kid someplace with the hopes of getting a Pokemon, and what they really get is, abducted or something worse. Did I say a question right here?
Yeah, it was just a very technical one. If you turn off the geolocator and the settings on your phone, then none of the geotags in any of these apps can operate, or do you have to go app by app and turn them off?
I think that if it's off in the picture, when you post the picture, it won't be able to have it, right? So it's like...
Right, the geotag is attached to the photograph. So if your location services are off, then what it does is it blocks that information about the latitude and longitude. It blocks it in the photo, and then when it gets posted online or on Snapchat or on Instagram, it doesn't go with the photo, if you follow me on that. And the good news about Instagram and Facebook is they take the geotags out and the metadata out before it gets posted on Instagram and Facebook. They save it for law enforcement purposes, but they take it out before it goes up on the site, which is a big help. Go ahead.
Aren't there some people who use the geotags to find out where their kids are, though? Or even to use just for GPS,
That's different, right? So that's, there's apps for like Find My Phone, and you can connect to that, and I think that's if you want to find your kids. And that's a different thing. I think when you go into the phone, there's like lots of different places where you can turn on location services and turn on the ability to capture that. And so what we're talking about is when you take a picture, be aware that there is a lot of information that is encapsulated with that picture. And if you post it on social media, now a lot of other people have access to that information.
So, for instance, if a child's missing, I know there's stories where they found the child because the phone was with the child.
Yeah.
That would still be accessible.
Yes.
It's on.
Okay.
If assuming the phone is on and charged, it will still be accessible. And that goes back to years ago. Remember when they passed the law that said every cell phone has to be 911 enabled? And that's for purposes of emergency purposes and things like that. So yeah, they can still ping the phone, they can still find it if they need to. And there are also other apps for following your kids, or as Katie would say, stalking your kids. Or my niece says, creeping on your kids. Like Find Friends, and that would just sort of for the purpose of stalking people, if you will. And you can, I think, individually turn that on and off for the GPS, but it doesn't affect the metadata in the geotagging.
Just one thing, just before we finish out this section and answer that question, we wanted to talk a little bit about the apps that are hidden. It's not just the case that if you are looking at the screen of your kid's phone and you see what apps they have, that means necessarily that those are only the apps that they have, because there are now apps that exist that will hide other apps. And so they look like these little, they can look like any kind of thing, but here's one where it's a secret folder where it looks like you've got some apps, but in fact you have others. And so this is just something to be aware of, that all is not as it seems.
All is definitely not, and not everybody has a relationship like Katie has with her parents, obviously. And I see the time's up, Susan. I see the time's up. And we'll go just a tiny little bit over, just But be aware that there are so many of these apps. That last slide, there used to be one called Poof that got taken down by Google Play and the iPhone. And I actually found out about this Hide app one because a kid said, oh yeah, well now we use Hide, because I asked about an icon on a phone like I told you to do earlier. And he said, oh yeah, that's the one we use since they took Poof down. And so I went and looked for it, and there are like 1,300 different apps that kids or people can use to hide things from other people. So just be aware as you're looking at phones that there are these, they're up there, they're stealth mode, and there are some that actually look like other icons. It might look like the calculator, it might look like the Safari icon, it might look like all things, but it could be. So again, communication.
And I'm sort of thinking that this is where we may sort of end, is we were going to talk to you a little bit more specifically about some of the dangers that are out there, but I feel like you may have gotten that message from other speakers here today. There's the dangers that exist from themselves and from their friends, something like oversharing, sharing too much information like the geotagging, things like an obsession with likes, where kids are so obsessed with getting likes on their photos and they're doing more and more extreme things. Peer pressures to do really dumb things, like the cinnamon challenge. You guys hear about this, where you snort cinnamon? And then there's cyberbullying and text bombs and revenge porn and things where you're sending the pictures voluntarily and then they get used against you involuntarily. And then there's the stranger, the bad guy danger that they have, which includes things like sextortion and sex trafficking and things like that. So there's a lot of dangers out there. I'm sure you guys know a little bit about them, but maybe we can zoom to what to do about it.
We could, unless you want to tell them a little bit about your sextortion case.
I can tell them a little bit about it, but we've done a couple of big sextortion cases in my office. The one that I did is a guy named, his last name is Kazarian, and he started with the people that he knew, started with girls that he knew, and what he didn't have malware or something really sophisticated that he would do, where he would click on the link or something like that. He would guess people's usernames, so say their Facebook account or their social media account or their email address. He would guess their username, and then he would go into the password reset function, and he would guess their password reset answers because they told the truth in their password reset answers. And so he would guess their password reset answers until he was able to get himself reset the password and get into the account. And then once he was in the account, he would search it for pictures, search it for naked pictures. He would search it for the contact information or the passwords of other accounts, and he would use that information against the person. So he would either contact the person and say, listen, I have these naked pictures that you took for yourself and never sent anywhere and just kept them for yourself. And now either you give me more naked pictures, or I'm going to put your naked naked picture and your Facebook image. And so this is a text that he had where he first would go on to Skype and he would use the information that he got from one account to web out to other victims. So he started with somebody that he knew and webbed out to hundreds and hundreds of women by pretending to be someone that they knew. So he would get on Skype and he would reach out to a contact and say, hey, my camera isn't working, that's why you can't see me, but we'll text. Well, I can see your picture. And then he would say, hey, wouldn't it be funny if you, my cousin, flashed me? Would that be hysterical? And I'm your female cousin, and so that would be, no big deal. And they would do it. And then he would take pictures during Skype, and then he would email back, so this is them saying, hey, do it. Or he would say, hey, my email isn't working, can you send me your username and password? And victim 2 would say, yeah, sure, here you go, username and password, here you go. And so now he's into somebody else's account. And he would use that information to then extort them and say, now I've got this picture, if you don't give me more pictures, go back one? Yeah, so he says, I'm going to put the picture on Facebook unless you're going to do this. And they would beg him in the Skype chats, please don't make me do this, please don't make me do this. And he said, look, and he would do it. He would put their naked picture as their Facebook image, and then they would say, fine, I'll do it. And they would provide him with more pictures. And he went on and did this for hundreds and hundreds of victims. And the thing that was really awful and interesting about these cases, the sex extortion cases that we've seen in my office, is that very, very, very few victims report it. In a different case that we had, the Mahangos case, only one of hundreds of victims reported it to the police. And the number one reason that they didn't report it to the police is they didn't want their parents to find out. And the number one reason they didn't tell their parents to find out is they didn't want their phones to get taken away. And that was a real thing. It was a really bad thing. And so one of the messages that I have for people is this idea of communication, is talking to your kids from a really early age so that they know that you finding out and them possibly getting their phone taken away is not the worst thing that can happen to them, because they think it is. So communication, early, often. Asking questions, like the kinds of questions that you were asking today of Katie. Go home and ask those questions of your students and of your kids. What are the apps that you're using? How are you communicating? What's the ways that people are talking to each other? Can you show me how people talk to each other on these apps? Those kinds of communication skills and processes will help you in a going forward way so that you can have that bond of trust that Katie talked about. About the rules. So the other thing, so communication, a big thing that you can do. The other thing is make some rules, right? Number one, computers, phones, internet access needs to be in the living room, in the public spaces. I'm a very big believer that we don't allow internet access or communication in their bedrooms late at night without you being aware of it. We've had a number of cases where young victims have gotten involved with strangers who wanted naked pictures because they're up late at night on the internet in these chats without their parents knowing about it. And so if we move the computer to the living room, they're certainly not taking off their shirts there. Turn off the geotagging and passwords. Passwords, I could talk forever about this, especially since of these criminal cases. You do not have to tell the truth in your password reset answers, right? We put those in, they don't even have to be words, right? I know somebody that takes the second word of every password reset question and types that backwards, and that's their answer, right? It's something consistent, it's something easy to remember, but it's not something that people can research about you. This is how 95% of the celebrity hacking cases happen, because celebrities are incredibly researchable online, and so they're going online and finding out their password reset answers. Do not make that easier.
If you take nothing away from today, that's probably the biggest thing, is those passwords. I know I heard Katie say I have the same password for every site. Not a great idea. Katie's going to go home tonight and change all her passwords. I just know she is. But the same thing. I mean, make your passwords, you obviously don't want to forget them, but make them difficult, and those password reset questions are huge. And there's lots of things you can do, including lying to yourself on your password questions. Just remember what the lie was. But make it difficult. Even if you're not a celebrity, make it difficult.
And with passwords, people are always asking me, how can I make a password difficult to guess but easy to remember? And I think for me, the biggest way is two different tips. And one is make it a phrase. Don't make it a word, make it a phrase. Like, I like ice cream, right? And something, a phrase that you will remember. And then use leet speak, which is, this I'm getting geeky here, but leet speak is where you substitute numbers for letters, like 3 for E and 4 for A, 1 for I, right? Substitute a couple of numbers in there for letters, and now you have a phrase that's easy for you to remember, hard to guess, and there's numbers in there that make it incredibly hard for a program to guess.
Don't underestimate the importance of that. Just like you're not celebrities, nobody's going to ever care about me. They're going to want your Chase password. They're going to want your Bank of America password. And so make it hard. Use that, use I like ice cream and use ILIC. That's the first letter of each of those 4 words. And do it that way. Something that you can remember, but nobody else is going to be able to ever guess. Finally, I know we've gone over and I apologize. But if something does happen, then what do, right? Be prepared, obviously. Call law enforcement. Call your local law enforcement agency. If they say we don't do cyber, we don't know what cyber is, we have no idea what to do, call the FBI. You can, if it's involving kids, you can report to the cyber tip line. What am I forgetting?
IC3.gov.
Right.
www.ic3.gov is the FBI website for reporting all internet crime. IC3.gov.
It's very user-friendly. It's fill in the blanks. You'll know all the answers. IC3.gov. Save all your communications. Keep logs. Keep screenshots. Make notes. Save voicemails. Save everything you got, because that's what law enforcement is going to need. Don't delete anything. And for goodness sake, I had this happen a couple of years ago, an inappropriate picture with a threat that a high school principal saw, and he thought, oh, I gotta save this, this is evidence for the police, I gotta save it, so he forwarded it to his email. Don't do that, because then you become a part of the problem. But also don't delete it. So call law enforcement, get law enforcement involved, report it immediately, as soon as you can. And as Tracy has already said, do not comply with the extortion. Call law enforcement first. Want to add anything to that? Okay. Resources. This is what we'll end with. There are lots, we always get that question, where do I go now? Now you've given me all this information, how do I keep up on it? How do I learn more? How do I keep up on the new apps and things that are out there? The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children is a great resource. It's missingkids.com. You can go there. They've got interactive tools and all sorts of updates on everything that's new. Their subsidiary site for kids is netsmarts.org. They have user-friendly videos and interactive games and tools for preschool all the way to high school. And kids tend to like them. So that's those are 2 really, really good resources that keep it up to date. Common Sense Media, I heard it mentioned earlier, is also a really good resource and a really good site. So I think we're out of time unless you guys have.
Yeah, and I think maybe we'll stick around.
Yeah.
Maybe the easiest thing to do is that we'll stick around up here for questions afterward. That way we don't keep everyone hostage, and just say thank you guys very much, and I hope you had a very informative and great day.
And good luck. I think we have a good bias from Kevin and Baxter in a minute here, but fill out those evaluations. If you haven't filled them out all day, fill them out. They're really important. We really, really pay attention to those. We will plan next year's event, which I think already has a date. For next year, so really fill those out, be really honest, we really take it to heart. Now, without further ado, let me give you Dr. Kevin Baxter again.
Thank you, Tracy. All right, so I'm standing between you and the freeway. I just want to, again, thank you for a great day, and thank you for your participation. Listening to this today, I was struck by a couple of things. First, if you go back 100 years in your head, I think it was around 100 years ago, but if someone moved across the country, from, let's say, Los Angeles to New York, they could be pretty convinced they weren't going to maybe speak to their family again until they reunited in person, maybe years later, maybe never. And you think about the world we live in today, and it's a remarkable world. It's an incredible world. And when we see this technology and we hear all this, it's absolutely astounding for those of us who do remember dialing telephones. And I was with my kids and there was a payphone at a restaurant we were at. No phone was out, but the payphone was there and they just knew it from like old Superman comic books, but no concept of what that was like. So I think we have to just remember how remarkable the world is. But I think why today is so important is that nothing comes without, I don't want to say cost, but nothing comes without caution and making sure that the way we use these tools are done in a way that's effective. What we talk about a lot of times in our schools is that technology should be an accelerator. Technology shouldn't substitute for learning, it shouldn't substitute for curriculum, it shouldn't substitute for anything else you're going to do, but it can accelerate things and make things more effective and can be really, really an enriching tool to utilize. And so I think today hopefully has been beneficial for all of you to learn about the remarkable capacity we have with all these tools, to learn, to socialize, to grow, to develop, but also the caution that we need to have as adults in working with our own children and our students, obviously. All the schools here, I want to thank you for being here and taking a day to come and bring your kids, your students here to be with us. I also want to encourage all of you to please participate in the Cybercrime Challenge. I know the instructions are in the back of the brochure, so you can actually look at those. And please do that, because I think that's effective. It's an effective way for us to see that what's been done today is actually having some practical use back at the school sites. And finally, I just want to once again echo our thanks to Tracy. And Tracy, all of our partners, our agency partners, the partnership here is so significant, and the Archdiocese is just blessed to be able to participate. I know Archbishop Gomez and the entire Archdiocese, Suzanne and Heather, we're just so grateful to that partnership because it's obviously such a huge, huge topic for our students. And I know I'm speaking for a lot of us around here, it just gets us kind of intimidated sometimes, so it's great to be able to hear it and know that we've got some strategies to go back and put into practice when we get back to our schools and homes. So thank you very much, and safe travels.